Welcome everyone to my channel. I'm Corey from Invest Like an Old Man. Thank you for taking time out of your day to watch my video. Uh, I appreciate it. I don't take it for granted. Today, we're just going to be discussing some of the scammers that are being exposed on the internet. Shout out to Tony the Closer, JT the Pocket Watcher. A lot of them have inspired me to make this channel. I've been passionate about this topic for a long time. My passion came from working in retail banking as a branch manager. Before that, I was a personal banker where I dealt directly with customers. As a branch manager, I'm involved in all types of transactions and potential fraud. So every time someone came in the bank, if one of my tellers or one of my personal bankers, suspected fraud, they would need to get me involved. So there's not much that came through the bank that was, fraudulent that I wasn't made aware of. And so after you meet all of these victims of fraud, you start to just feel like, you know, I don't know what word I want to use, but sympathetic or empathetic for these people. You just start to feel a certain type of way, but you start to notice a trend, and they would prey on a lot of elderly people or a lot of uneducated and lower income people, mostly people that cannot afford to take these losses. So what I mean is, if you're elderly and you've worked your entire life to save up money and you get scammed, you're 70 years old, you really will never have the ability to make up that money because you're out of the workforce. And typically, those are the type of people that are on a fixed income. So maybe they had a 401k or they saved up money, but when they lose it, they're never going to get it back. And these are some of the most vulnerable people in our community. And then on the other side is there are people who are lower income who may have received a settlement or an inheritance, and they're watching all these YouTube videos and listening to all these podcasts where people are using all these buzzwords like generational wealth, the play, and flipping money. And these people are coming to 50,000 or 100,000 because they got back pain forever. And they feel like, well, I know this 100,000 isn't enough to last me for the rest of my life. So what can I do to make this money stretch? And what they do is they get enticed by their greed, because if you listen to someone like me, I call myself Invest Like an Old Man because the advice and information I'm going to give you is really boring. I'm not trying to sell you a course. Do I want you to watch my videos? Yep, but I don't get paid off of that. I just want to stop these scams from happening, and I want to see people stop being victimized. A lot of the stuff that I saw wasn't on the internet. It wasn't through a story. It was firsthand. I've had to sit in front of people and tell them these things were a scam and look in their eye and they tell me that I'm wrong. And I've had to be the person who tells someone that, hey, your account is overdrawn by $10,000, and this money that you're expecting from your direct deposit is going to go to offset this $10,000 because you were victimized and you didn't utilize your common sense, and you let your greed override what you kind of know to be true. So I've seen this firsthand. So I have a big passion around these podcasts and allowing these scammers. And yes, scammers a buzzword. Some of these people may be legitimate, but they're giving bad financial advice, bad tax advice, and in some case, fraudulent tax advice. And these platforms are allowing these people to access to their audience, because that's what these scammers want to do. They want access to your audience so that if they just get a small portion of them to invest with them or buy their fraudulent product or service, they get rich over time. And I know the most famous and or well-known one right now is Caesar Pena and DJ Envy. And until all the facts come out, we don't know whether DJ Envy is a victim or if he is a willing participant in the alleged fraud. But what we do know is that he had this person on this platform. He went into business with them, and he did not do his own due diligence. And what we also know is that people will assume that because DJ Envy is a celebrity and he's rich, that if he vouches for this guy, then all of the due diligence was done. I've seen that happen a lot recently. I love the Earn Your Leisure podcast, but the truth of the matter is they've had multiple people on there that have also given some bad advice. I actually remember hearing Caesar Pena on there give horrible advice. And I remember in that moment saying, hey, that's fraudulent, what he's telling people to do. That is fraud. So if he's willing to do that, then I know that this isn't a person who is out here trying to do legitimate business. There have been other people like the Social Proof podcast, and I'm not calling them out. I saw one of their videos where they were defensive based on Tony the Closer and JT the Pocket Watcher, and I thought it was a horrible response. I do think when people give you feedback, I think the appropriate thing to do is simply to say, "Hey, I made a mistake." If you're doing a financial podcast, the reality is at some point you're probably going to get scammed. But when someone's on your show saying blatantly fraudulent information, if you can't catch that information in the moment, you got to educate yourself. Some of these shows I've seen, the moment they said this information, I didn't have to go research it. I knew that it wasn't true. Now, I personally have a background in finance. As I said, I was a branch manager for 12 years. I was licensed to give financial advice. I was a realtor. I invest in real estate. I own a business. So I would say that I'm more knowledgeable than the average person. However, the tips that I'm going to provide over the course of the next year are going to ultimately allow you to spot these scams. So the first thing I want to talk about today is how to independently vet or verify information. So whether you're on TikTok, Instagram, or YouTube, and someone's out there giving tax advice, right? You can simply do a Google search. So if someone says, buy a vehicle that's more than 5,000 pounds and you can write it off, Google it. At some point, if you read through enough websites, it's going to get you to the IRS tax code. And you can actually read through the tax code to determine if that information is true or if it's false. It's that simple. I'm not going to take your word for it. I have an accountant that does my taxes, and I pay him really well for it. But let me tell you how much I'm a skeptic. He gives me the address or the websites where I can go to mail my quarterly tax payments because I own a business. When you make a certain amount of money, the IRS requires that you pay quarterly taxes. They're not going to let you pay it at the end of the year. I even go double check the address that's on the paper to make sure that I'm actually sending it to the IRS post office box and not to him. He's done nothing for me to think that he's going to scam me, but I believe in double checking behind people. Is a difference between being skeptical and cynical. I'm a skeptic. A cynic thinks nobody's telling the truth, right? Some people are cynical. No matter what you say, nah, they're lying. They're not making that money. They didn't do that. That's being cynical. A skeptic says, all right, let me verify the information that they're saying. Does that make sense? Does this sound true? Is this plausible? And if it meets all of those things, and I can determine, okay, this person's an honest person, they're telling the truth. If someone's trying to get me into a real estate deal, for example, let me backtrack. I own real estate. Again, I'm not trying to sell a course, but if someone questioned me, I could give you the addresses. You can go to the county website. You can look up those addresses and you can see me registered as the owner of those properties. So if I say, hey, I invest in real estate, I can give you addresses. If you want to go in business with me, I can show you bank statements that would vouch for my net worth. If you're just taking my word for it, then ultimately um, you're going to get scammed or you're going to be taken advantage of. And I know that there are people that make fake bank statements. There are people who do a lot of other things. There are ways around that. If someone wants to send me bank statements because I want to go in business with them, I'm going to have them in front of me log in to their online banking and I'm going to have them print those bank statements directly from their website. Why? Because it's very easy to make a fake bank statement. If you give me tax returns, there's a form that you can sign that would allow someone else, such as a bank, to request your legitimate tax returns. Anybody can print out a tax return on a piece of paper and sign it and then say, this is my tax return. But there's a form that can be filled out and I can submit it to the IRS and get a transcript to verify that you actually filed and paid money on these taxes. I'm using a third party to verify the information that you're telling me. For me, that's the best way to avoid being scammed. I don't want to go on for 30 or 40 minutes, so I'm going to end this right here, make this part one, and then I'll start off with part two later.